Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Last night had a kind of an interesting evening. Thought I'd tell you about it, mostly to try to drive a point home, kind of like what happened last night. Our emergency response team that our group has was meeting and doing some training last night, and I was actually in the process of saying at the training that, you know, whether or not you're part of this team or you're just in your daily lives, continually, you know, advancing our training, doing more and better medical training, search and rescue, you know, all the different types of stuff that we do. It's good because you never know when you come upon a situation. You know, that's part of it, especially as preppers, because I was trying to bring in the whole preparedness that it's good to train. You know, it's good to go out there. You may have years ago been an expert marksman in rifle, pistol, or whatever, but if you're not training on a regular basis, you're not keeping that skill. As I'm kind of saying this, and we had rented a community center building to have our training in. So as I'm saying this, someone burst through the doors screaming that they needed help outside. And we run out there, and this guy was trying to transport his mother to the hospital. She was having difficulty breathing and had gone into complete respiratory failure. We run out there. There's several of us with medical backgrounds. We're able to take care of her, kind of get her, you know, I had an oxygen tank with me. Of course, we're communicating with 911, communicating with the ambulance that's en route. We ended up helping land a helicopter. The long story short is the woman left in a way better condition than what she started off in. I do not believe, and talking with one of the paramedics that was on scene, I don't think she would have made it to the hospital. I don't think that would have lasted, because we were almost 30 minutes from the hospital. So it was, hey, a great training night that we actually, you know, got to do some hands-on stuff with the team and really drive the point home. I kind of joked afterwards. I'm like, you know, I guess the Father helped me drive my point home. Maybe next time kind of not quite as intense, but the point is, folks, is that whether or not you're volunteering with the fire department or volunteering doing anything, just in your own preparedness, you need to stay sharp. You need to stay sharp. You can't live off, and I've talked to many people through the years like, oh yeah, well, I was once a special forces, or I was this in the military, or I was this as a law enforcement, or I did this in medical, and I want to say, well, how long ago was that? I mean, that's great that you got that training, but you need to stay sharp. You need to stay honed. You need to train constantly. And I'm not talking just with rifles and pistols, medical training, all the different areas of stuff that you have trained in. You need to maintain that, because you never know if something is going to happen right in front of you, or that you will find yourself in a situation that you need to act. And I'll tell you, if you find yourself in that situation and you haven't trained, you haven't kept up, and you're not able to perform to actually save that life or to do whatever you need to do, you're gonna really hate yourself later, because you're gonna think, I was capable, but I kind of lost those skills. I lost that edge, and I didn't do what I needed to do. So, and then of course there's always the possibility that a life could be involved if you're unable to, whether it's yours, your family, or someone around you. So keep your training up, folks. Even if you're not part of a team, if you're not part of a mag or whatever, do it on your own, if nothing else. Because you never know what gets dropped in your lap, whether it's trying to save a life, trying to protect a life, whatever it is. So keep your training up. Anyways, so this stuff with LA, it's gone well beyond LA, and it's getting big. And remember, the June 14th, that's the big day of protest. And I've talked about it for a couple of days, and I think some people were kind of, you know, somewhat ignoring it or maybe not believing that it was real news. Well, now it's getting pretty much mainstream news in the sense that it's accepted that that is what's happening. There is a nationwide effort, and the George Soroses and all those people are definitely involved. I mean, I don't have the receipts in my hand, but it's pretty much been connected, and they're trying to bring everyone out of the woodworks. Every type of far left organization, whether it's paid actors or just extreme activists, to have protests, riots in every major city. And it's already starting. As of last night, somewhere 20-25 cities saw some level of protest or riots in them. Not all, certainly, like what's going on in LA, because what's going on in LA is, I mean, that's where it started, and it's big there, and there's a lot of violent stuff. There's looting, cars being burned, people are being injured, both on the rioter side and the police side, and then just innocent bystanders. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but it's starting to happen in other cities. I'm not making any indication that this is as big so far as the whole BLM, George Floyd riots, or even the riots way back in the day, Rodney King, and that did happen in other cities. But it is moving that direction. And it's all for a purpose. It's to, I mean, my goodness, there's a lot of reasons, but it's trying to disrupt things, it's trying to distract things, and I believe they're trying to push us. And as much as some of you may completely disagree with me, and you have the absolute right to disagree with me, I believe that it's a joined effort, maybe, between both the left and the right, to push us to the point that, well, we absolutely have to have, Palantir monitoring everybody, and we have to have spy drones everywhere, and we have to have this big surveillance system everywhere for our peace and security, and we have to have more troops on the streets, and we have to have more law enforcement and more spending on the military, and it's just a bigger reason to have a bigger police state, and in the end, it's going to be this, what's been told on both sides, a big old new world order. Isn't it great, folks? Aren't you excited for it? Where they can monitor and watch everything, and we have AI running the show. It's interesting that all this has happened when the two big things in the news, there were two big things in the news, and that was the discovery that the Trump administration, which in this respect isn't much different than the Biden or the Obama administration, is pushing this Palantir, this big surveillance system, this Patriot Act 2.0 kind of thing. And then also the big news was back to Epstein, because of the whole Trump and Elon Musk, whatever fake little love spat between them. That came back into the conversation. Well, is Trump on the list? Where is the list? Oh, we had Kash Patel come out and say, oh, there's nothing there. We've watched the videos. There's nothing to see. There's no crime committed. All this kind of stuff. And so those two conversations were pretty big. And then now all this stuff has happened, and no one's talking about the Epstein List anymore. No one's talking about Palantir. No one's talking about AI. None of that. It's all gone off the conversation. Now we're focused on these riots, where all this stuff is happening and where it's building to. I don't know exactly where it's all headed, but I think that we've got another rough summer ahead of us, and we need to be prepared for that. I mean, there's a lot of speculation of how this is going to play out. I don't think it's going to be good, and I think you need to be prepared for it, because this one, I believe personally, has all the markers of being worse than the BLM riots. I think that the emotional side of this is coming from the left and from people that just hate what Trump is doing is much higher than it was back during the BLM riots, and they're trying to make this an all-encompassing issue. You know, this isn't just about one guy that, you know, the police, you know, he died in police custody while they were arresting him. This is about all the stuff that's going on. This is about Palestine and Gaza Strip. This is about illegals being deported. This is about, you know, all the U.S. aid being cut. This is about, you know, stopping all the transgender stuff. It's about all of that. And that's what they're going to make it. And so the possibility of these riots becoming quite large, very disruptive, and maybe even to the point of, you know, close to a civil war type of level. I'm not saying an actual civil war, but it may definitely feel like that on the streets. You need to get prepared for that, especially if you live in any type of, you know, moderate to large size urban areas. You need to be prepared. You need to have your plans, your backup plans, your evacuation plans, your, you know, holding up in your house plans. Disruptions can happen in certain areas. You know, it may not be a widespread disruption to the supply chain, but in your area it may be, simply because it's unsafe to go to the grocery store. You know, how are you going to get there? You're not going to be able to have it delivered, because they stopped all that in LA because they're burning all the cars and attacking all the people doing that. Depending on where you're at, things could get pretty rough in the coming weeks. And so you need to be preparing for this. This is not something I would think to take lightly. You know, you may live in areas like I do, and so it may not be as big a deal. It's probably not going to happen at all. It didn't happen out here during the, you know, BLM riots. So, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to affect you. And you should be on a heightened state of alert, and you should be preparing, and you should be training. You know, if you haven't done your stop the bleed training in a while, pull your tourniquet out, make sure it still works good, try it out. If you haven't picked up your rifle or your pistol and done a little practice, you need to do that. If you haven't gone through your gear lately, you should do that. You should make sure that everything's good and going. You know, last night when I was talking, I said, you know, one of the things that irritates me is, you know, you see people that they pull out their gear bag, whether it's their bug out bag, whatever it is, and they got nice fancy new stuff and it's still wrapped up in the package, and a lot of people like that look. I can't stand that. Get it out, try it, practice with it, make sure it works. If you're not utilizing your gear and testing it and checking it out, then to me it's I don't even count it as gear, because you don't know. You're taking an unproven weapon into battle, as far as I'm concerned. And so you need to test your stuff out. Some of you may find yourself in a situation in the next few weeks that this is very important, and that you might need that stuff. So be stepping it up, getting ready. I think these riots, I think we're in it for a while. And I think it is going to spread in multiple different locations. It's time to get your houses in order, folks. You need to be preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.